All right, we are live. All right, hello guys. We are reaching folks around the globe at this particular time. So good morning, good evening, or anything that suits your time zones. Garage4Hackers welcomes you once again for our 5th webcast, Ranchoddas series, PHP XSS Protection Bypass by Ashar Javed. I know a lot of people would be new to Garage4Hackers webcast, so I would like to give a quick intro about our community. We were in 2007 an awkward community, a bunch of amateur hackers who used to ask questions and respond to each other's questions in awkward. The community was pretty active back then, and we had almost 899 members at that time. And later in 2010, we moved on. We brought a domain, garage4hackers.com, and we started a forum over there. And from then till now, we had a lot of interesting posts, a lot of interesting discussions, a lot of things which are related to security over there. Right now, we have members all across the globe, ranging from researchers, pen testers, malware analysts, or security engineer, or anything you can name. Some of our achievements we have over here, we have almost like 4,000 users, registered users, with almost 8,000 posts. We actively participate in bug bounty programs, and we submit a lot of bugs to Google, Facebook, Yahoo ever since 2010. We have a bunch of people who actively fusses browsers, and we have almost 15 plus CVIDs for Chrome, IE, Firefox, and Safari. Well, a lot of people go to conferences to attend great talks, but even before those talks happen, we have those discussions happening in our forum. And one of our cool members, Vinu, usually comes up with really great topics which you can even learn before the conferences. So we also do a lot of off security things, which is related to biometrics, lockpicking, cable TV, network research, data cards, and various other things. Anything which is under the technology, we try to break them and hack it, and then we try to publish it and contribute to the community. We release a lot of tools, which we would appreciate if you could join hands with us and share the knowledge which we have gained from the internet. What we try to do is build a community where, open source community, we could share a lot of information and contribute back to the internet. So the Ranchoddas series is one among those contributions which we are making as a community service. So about the webcast, so the name Ranchoddas webcast is the name is inspired from a character Ranchod or Rancho from the movie 3 Idiots. This movie is rated one among the top 250 movies in IMDb. So the movie is about a spirit of learning, sharing knowledge, and how one particular youth was able to inspire people to create a platform for bringing together people. So the character in that particular series has inspired us, and that is the reason why we're given this webcast the name Ranchoddas. Maybe you should definitely check out that movie. So today's talk would be from Ashar Javed. He is a research assistant RUB, Germany, working towards his PhD. Great guy. We were in the same conference at HITB in 2013, but couldn't meet. Really great research work on web application security. And this is the kind of people we would want to bring, the really cool people. And we want them to talk to you on various things. And that's what we've been doing. So, and before I start, I would like to thank our sponsors and partners. NetSparker. The reason why we have so much crowd over here is because of these companies' contribution. They helped us reach the community through social media and other emails and all those things. So NetSparker has given 15 days license for all Garage4Hackers members. You should definitely check that out on our social media pages. Hack in the Box Amsterdam and Hack in the Box Malaysia, these people have been really amazing to us. We share the same agenda, that keeping the knowledge free, and they've been really great sponsors. And we also thank Backspace, which is our gold sponsor, who is hosting all our things, all the webinar and all those contents which are related to webinars will be hosted on their servers. We also would like to thank our media partner, the Hackers News. These people helped us reach, I think almost 15 to 20% of our crowd came from the Hackers News. So I think it's time to start. Thanks a lot for all the people. And we have a couple of volunteers as well. Dheeraj, I don't have the names right now, but we're going to definitely have a list of, yeah, I have the name over here. Imdullah, Dheeraj, Himanshu, Ajay Singh, Niyagi, Chaitu, Raghu. All these people have, they were not part of the core team, but they have actively helped us to bring this series of webcasts to you. So thanks a lot. It's been an amazing teamwork. Let's start. Let's hand it over to Ashar.
So, Sandeep, should I start?
Yeah, Ashar, you can start now. You're live on.
Okay, thanks. So, hi all. So first of all, thanks for having me on this Garage4Hackers webcast. Basically, it's quite a pleasant experience by giving a talk by sitting at your own home. So the talk is about on breaking PHP-based cross-site scripting protections mechanism in the wild. So I will show you how I found XSS in different sites. So I will tell you a way, basically a systematic methodology. And once you will apply this methodology to different sites or different languages, you will see how easy it is to find an XSS. So let's start without wasting any time. So basically, this talk is not about monkey testing. Actually, in my experience or what I see or when I get different emails and messages, most of the bug bounty hunters, they simply do test without anything in their mind, what they are testing, why they are testing. And so if they found some bug, so they make a party. So this is called a monkey testing. So they have no idea what they are doing. So then I go to Wikipedia and I saw this definition of monkey testing. In computer science, a monkey test is basically a unit test that runs with no specific test in mind. It's exactly what I am thinking about monkey testing. So we found a definition on Wikipedia also. I would recommend you to watch this short clip. It's very funny. And this will summarize everything about monkey testing and monkey parting basically. So slides will be available immediately after the talk. So please focus on learn something. So I would suggest you. Basically, the talk that I am going to present is about systematically breaking. I love prison break basically. So who I am. So as far as job is concerned, I am a researcher in Ruhr University Bochum, and I always call myself a student. I am a student of XSS and working towards my PhD. So my name has been listed in different Hall of Fames. So I'm father of two, and I was a speaker at Hack in the Box, DeepSec, OWASP, and in few months I will be speaking at Black Hat Europe also. So feel free to ping me on Twitter. So if you have any question, you can post it on IRC. I will try to answer over there, or anytime you can post me on Twitter and I will try to reply as soon as possible. So another reason why people call me an XSS, if you will Google my name, so Ashar Javed XSS come first before my original name Ashar Javed, so it's funny basically. Why I love XSS? The first reason is, of course, I'm doing PhD, so I'm a student. So on the right side, the university is taking money, and on the left side, my supervisor. So no words about the supervisor, but it's all about PhD. Second reason why I love XSS is basically if you're getting dollars or euros in the form of bug bounty, so everyone loves it. So, and finally, XSS is everywhere basically. I would suggest you to look at my slides that are available here. I recently checked and I think it has around 10,000 views. So please look at the slides and you will see XSS in all top sites. So the agenda for today is very simple. We will briefly talk about PHP, briefly talk about XSS, and then the main part, how I test applications, and then I will present a per context XSS attack methodology that was able to break nearly almost all PHP-based protections that I found in the wild, or the common protections. And in the end, I will summarize my findings of Alexa survey of top 100 sites. So why PHP? The first question, obvious question that came to my mind. It has so many reasons. The first reason is that 81.7% of the web application servers are using PHP. Second reason, 2.1 million web application servers are using PHP. Another reason, installed on 244 million websites. Reason number 4, server-side programming language of the year 2013. So what does it mean? It means that if you will do something for PHP, it surely will have an impact. PHP is the most popular server-side language. So all commons are most popular site like Facebook, Magento, WordPress, VK, they all have been written in PHP. So let's talk about cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting, as per OAPS, is basically a type of injection problem in which malicious scripts are injected into a simple or trusted websites. So basically, cross-site scripting lies under the category of an injection where attacker inject his supplied script and then do whatever he wants to do basically, and he executes the script in the context of a legitimate domain or trusted domain. I will share some statistics about XSS. XSS, why XSS is so important and so popular. According to Kunal Anand, he is a CTO of Pivoti. 80% of all security incidents in the financial sector have been attributed to cross-site scripting. So it's a hell amount of number, 80% of all security incidents. According to open source database, XSS is at number 1 among SQL injection, CSRF, file inclusion. According to OAP's top 10, it is at number 3. I don't know why. It should be at number 1. I want to see XSS at number 1. Hopefully within the next 1 or 2 years, it will be at number 1. According to Google Vulnerability Reward Program, a few months ago there was a presentation at San Francisco by a Google security team, and one of the slides was that XSS is at number 1 bug bounty submission to Google in year 2013. So among all externally reported bugs to Google, XSS was at number 1. A few days ago, Siddhar Kat, he's from Google security team, he tweeted that the first time in history XSS is Googled more often than SQL injection according to Google Trends. So it shows PHP on one hand is the most popular language, and XSS on the other hand is the most common vulnerability. So next, you might think, or the question that came to our mind is why you should care about XSS. I tweeted last year about this. There were 2 popular hacks last year. One was the Apple developer and the other was Ubuntu forms. So according to these blogs, in both hacks, XSS was involved. So XSS basically used in hacking Apple development and Ubuntu forums. A very recent example of traffic hijacking with the help of an XSS. Persistent XSS enables large-scale distributed denial of service attack. According to the blog post by Incapsula, over 20 million GET requests originating from browsers of over 22,000 internet users. So it's because of an XSS. So I would recommend you to read this post. Another recent example, Tweetbleed, just a month old. So Tweetbleed is basically a term that was coined here. So you can see that tweet. So it was basically a persistent XSS, and people are retweeting without their knowledge just because of this TweetDeck persistent XSS. And if you look at the number, 84,661 people have retweeted this without their knowledge. So just because of an XSS. And where it ends in a temporary taken down of TweetDeck. So TweetDeck has to shut down its service just because of an XSS. So XSS is that much important. So now I think most of you are getting bored because I'm talking about statistics, I'm talking about general PHP, general XSS. So, but what if I told you that I was able to break all PHP XSS protections? The next thing that surely came to your mind is how. It's funny basically. So let's talk about testing, how I test different PHP based XSS protection. So first, in all my test beds, I try to simulate a real web applications. All the testing have been conducted in 5 common contexts: HTML, script, attribute, style, and URL. What are these contexts? I will talk about in a minute. So if developers have explicitly mentioned that our protection is only suitable for an HTML context, then I never tested it for other contexts. If they haven't mentioned, then my assumption is that the developers are not security aware, so they will definitely use it everywhere. So that's why I tested all the protections in all contexts unless it has been mentioned. The question, what is context basically? Context is basically an environment where user supplied input or input from other application ends up or starts living. So whatever you input in a web application, it ends up somewhere. And where it ends up, it's called a context. So I will quickly summarize different contexts that are very common. First of all, HTML context. In HTML context, your user supplied input, what you're inputting inside a web application, is basically reflect back as a body of some HTML tag. Here in this snippet, you can see there is a body tag, close, and in between there is some PHP echo filter function. There is some sort of filter function that tries to filter our input and then reflects back an output, but the output will be as a content of some tags. So this is called an HTML tag, basically HTML context. So just a real example, if you'll go to a website, EA is a popular sports site, and if you will simply query junk double quotes XYZ, and if you look at the source code, you will see your input ends up inside as a body of title tag and as a body of a span tag. So this is basically an HTML context. In a similar manner, we have an example from health. Slides will be online, you can see it. So another example from India Times, you are inputting something and it ends up inside a title and inside an H1 tag. So basically this is an HTML context. So the next one is an attribute context. In attribute context, input reflects back as a part of an attribute value. If you closely look at this snippet, div is basically a tag and class is basically an attribute, and as a part of value we have a PHP code that is echoing some input after filtering it. So this is called an attribute context. So here the example is div tag and class attribute, but it can be anything. It can be an input tag, and here it can be a value attribute. So it can be anything. So this is called an attribute context. So another example from EA, if I type simply double quotes junk or just junk query, and if I look at the source code, it reflects back as a part of title attribute. Here title is an attribute of an anchor tag. So this is called an attribute context. So quickly move on. There is another example. So there is another example here. Our input basically reflects back as a value of an input tag attribute. So basically this is an attribute context. In a similar manner, we have a script context. In a script context, your user supplied input reflect back in a script code block as a value of some variable. For example, here you see we are sitting inside a script block. There is a variable declaration A, and as a value of this A, we have some PHP code that is, after filtering, tries to reflect back the output. So this is called a script context, because if you will closely see, we are sitting inside a script block. So another real example, if we go to health.com and I query simply XSS, just a junk query, and if I look at the source code, see, this is a script block, there is a variable, search string, and my input is reflect back as a part of this value of this variable. So this is basically a script context, and here the example is basically uses a double quote case, because according to HTML5 specs, double quotes, single quotes, and even without quotes, everything is allowed. But this is an example where devs are using double quotes around your inputted value. So another example from Daily Mail, I am inputting a junk XSS and simply it reflects back inside a script block, but here you see devs are using single quotes. So single quotes are allowed and double quotes both are allowed. So another example from India Time, it was funny, actually some months ago I tweeted about this thing. My input reflects back as a part of their tracking script. We are sitting inside a script block and they are trying to track what users are searching. So it reflects back here, and at that time they are not basically properly filtering it, and it ends up in an XSS in India Time. Some months ago someone has reported it and it got fixed. So, and the last, second last is basically URL context. URL context is basically where your user supplied input reflects back as a value of an href. Here the example that I'm using is an anchor tag and href attribute. It can be anything. For example, it can be iframe tag and it can be source attribute. So everything that deals with the URL, called a URL context basically. So, and as a part of value of href, there is some PHP code that is filtering our input and tries to reflect back as a part of an output. This is called URL context. But you may think where we are using this context. So this is an example. Nowadays, mostly forums, popular sites, discussion channels, support tickets facility, they are all using WYSIWYG editors. What you see is what you get editors. And one of the most common feature of WYSIWYG editor is basically this one, insert link. And if you will click on this feature, the site normally opens a dialog box where they're asking to give a URL. It means that your user supplied input directly lands as a part of an href attribute. So this is called URL context. And this is very common. All CMSs, all content management support systems, they support this basically URL context. This context is also very common. So another example, TinyMC, another popular WYSIWYG editor. If you will click on insert link, they will ask you to input a URL, and it means if you look at the code, this will land as a part of an href attribute. So this is called URL context. Another example from Twitter, on Twitter translation, they provide you a facility where you can, in the forum post, where you can insert links. So it means that again URL context is there. The last one is a style context. Style context is basically where your user supplied input reflects back as a part of a style attribute or style tag. Here the example of the snippet that you are seeing, it basically deals with the style attribute. I am not considering style tag right now. This is style attribute. Div is a tag and style is an attribute, and there is some PHP function. So again, you may think where we can see the style context. So this is a screenshot from eBay. Yeah, I think maybe it's from their developer guide. So they, at one point, they are asking me to insert a link, and at the same time they ask me to, you can style a link also. So here you see there is a style block. It means whatever I will input here, it will be a part of a style attribute. So that's why it's called a style context. So this was an XSS in eBay, it's still there. So I have hidden basically the URL. So they are working on the fix. This is an XSS in a style context. So style context is basically still popular. Another XSS in Magento Commerce, I got rewarded and this got fixed. It was an XSS again in a style context. You see style with expression. So it means that style context is still there, and even it is available on popular sites also. So far I tried to summarize everything. So these are the 5 common contexts. You are a user, you are sitting inside a browser, you input something, it goes to the server, and then normally on a page it reflects back in different contexts. Here you see in HTML, here you see attribute, here you see script, here you see URL, and here you see style. So this is the common case. You can go to, right now you can go to Amazon and you can go to eBay, just input anything you want and look at the source code. You will see these contexts. So let's come to the main topic. Attack methodology. So the question arises how to attack different contexts. It's not like that you simply input image source X on error alert 1 and it will give you an access everywhere. This is not the case, because as I told you previously, so I will tell you a way how to systematically break everything. So our attack methodology is systematic in nature. It's very easy to understand. It is context specific, and the most important point that I am claiming right now is attack methodology is complete, and one can guarantee that there is an XSS or there is no XSS. If you remember, some months ago I announced a challenge, $1,000 US challenge. So overall I received 78,188 XSS attack attempts from 1,035 unique IP addresses, and no one was able to bypass it. So it means that my methodology, or the methodology that I am going to show you, it's complete methodology. One can guarantee that there is an XSS or there is no XSS. So another interesting thing, with the help of attack methodology, it's I developed my filter by looking at my attack methodology. One can develop a secure XSS protection by looking at the attack methodology. And at the same time, the attack methodology is very simple. It's very general. I applied it on PHP. You can apply it on ASP, on Ruby, and other languages. So let's start. So this is basically a script context attack methodology. If you will closely look at the diagram, it has to be a three-step process. And it has to be a three-step. Why? If you look at this declaration, script variable A, double quotes injection point, script close. Or we have that case, script variable A, single quotes, injection point here available in double quotes or in single quotes. Because as I told you before, according to HTML5 specs, double quotes are allowed, single quotes are also allowed. So we don't know. Developers may use single quotes, developers may use double quotes. So that's why I think it has to be a three-step process. How? So because we imagine we have a double quotes case, we start with double quotes, we have a semicolon. Semicolon is basically a statement terminator. It will terminate this variable. Then we, just as a proof of concept, we have a confirm one. You can use alert, or you can not use alert, because in real life scenario, attacker never use alert and confirm and prompt. So basically they try to steal data or something like that. So, but just to show you an example, I have used confirm one, semicolon, and the last double quotes will properly close this double quotes value. So the first step starts with double quotes, semicolon, and then proof of concept JavaScript execution. It has to be like that always. So for example, you are doing testing, you don't know, you apply the first step, and then you look at the source code, you found, oh, devs are using single quote. Then you will apply the second step. The second step is basically starts with single quote, semicolon. Semicolon will basically terminate this variable value, and then again we have a proof of concept JavaScript execution, and then again the last single quote will take care of this closing single quote. If both cases fails, for example, devs are properly filtering double quotes, they are properly filtering single quotes, then you can apply the third step. The third step is basically in JavaScript string context, we can prematurely close the script tag as a part of variable value here, and then we can execute JavaScript of our choice. Here, in order to keep things simple, I am simply calling a confirm one inside a script block. Along with each basically chart, you can see the browser logos. So this methodology is basically browser independent. It works in Chrome, it works in Firefox, it works in Opera, it works in Internet Explorer, and it has to be a three-step process like that. So this is how you can easily find an XSS. If you see this type of situation, you can see script and you have some variable declaration, then you should check this methodology, and I am sure you can easily find an XSS by applying this methodology. So attacker can also use, instead of this closing double quotes or single quotes, attacker can also use a single line comments. So both serves the same purpose, so it's up to your choice. Either use this or either use this. So let's see just one example. So we have a site. I hope it will work. Yeah. So I simply search for double quotes XSS. This is just simply a junk, and I look at the source code where it lands. Basically, I search for XSS. So first it lands as a part of HTML context. Here, yeah. From this line, we have a script block starts, and we have a variable name s.pagename, whose value, if you look at the value, this is our input. It lands as a part of a script block, a script context. So, and now I can see that devs are using double quotes. So remember the methodology. The first step is basically double quotes, semicolon. So let's apply it. if we use double quotes, semicolon, confirm 1, semicolon, double quotes, and let's see what happens. So here you go. So just by observing what is happening inside the code, now you have a particular methodology. No need, always look at the source code. So no need to use image source X on error. Why? If you know that there is a particular context, then tries to attack that context. So this should be closed now. Yeah. Next, another demo is another popular site, Cracked, is basically America's only a three-step process, and keep in mind we are only attacking a script block, and there has to be a three-step process. So let's move on. So now the question that you might think now, why no sort of encoding? I am simply using double quotes, semicolon, single quote, semicolon, script tag starts. According to this slide by some, I found it somewhere from OAPS, there are more than 1.6 million or billion ways to encode a script block. But you see in the diagram, there is no sort of encoding. They are simply a plain stuff. So why? This is the answer. It simply does not work. Encoding simply does not work in order to break the script context. Why? Because with the help of encoding, you cannot break the context. You cannot properly close the variable declaration. And in that way, you cannot execute a JavaScript of your choice. But there is a case. The case is like that if imagine developers are doing some server-side decoding explicitly, then encoding will start working. So because slides will be available immediately after the talk, some links are given. You can read my write-up, and here you see that encoding works. But in generic way, in general, encoding does not help you to break the context. The next question that you might be thinking right now. First, I show you a demo. Why encoding does not help you. Just open this fiddle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically, we have different script blocks. Here you see a variable injection point. If you remember the diagram, it's the same thing. I explicitly close the context with the help of hard-coded single quotes because I am using single quotes. So I close it with the single quote, semicolon. This variable declaration has been closed. Then there is a confirm one, and this single quote will take care of this stuff. These are very important. I am saying that encoding will not help you to break the context. See, this is the hex encoding of single quotes. I encoded single quotes in the hex form. Next, I encoded single quotes in decimal form. Next, in URL encoded form. Next is HTML5 encoded. And the last one is Unicode. But if I run this fiddle, and if imagine this encoding will work, then I should see at least 5 boxes. But if I will run this fiddle, I will only get a one-time alert because encoding will not help you to break the context. When I announce the challenge, people are trying to break the context with the help of encoding because I am not doing any server-side decoding. So encoding simply fails. So, and this fiddle shows you I try different encodings and they simply fail. But next thing, does it mean encoding not work in a script context? No, encoding works, but it does not help you to break the context. So let's see this demo. So here you can see again we are sitting inside a script block, the same situation, except we have now a double quote case. In the previous example we have a single quotes case, so and now we have a double quote case, so it doesn't matter. So here you see in this script block, with the help of JS, there is basically a tool where you can use simply non-alphanumeric JavaScript. You can encode anything. So I encoded alert one using that tool. So here you see this encoding. Here you see this is Unicode encoded, this is hex encoded, this is decimal encoded, this is basically a mixture of different encodings. You can see HTML5 encoding here, you can see hex encoding. So encoding works, but if you will closely look at every script block, in order to execute JavaScript in an encoding form, you have to start with a plain text, plain double quotes. You have to use a hard-coded double quotes in order to break the context. So encoding works, but it does not help you in order to break the context. So basically this is the takeaway. So you can also test this methodology on JSON context. Just I leave it as an exercise for you. So the URL will be available in the slide, so you can simply go there and test it. So now let's talk about attribute context. Now forget script context. Now we are sitting inside an attribute block, and we will talk about an attack methodology for an attribute context. So again, we have div is basically a tag, class is an attribute. So I am using an example with div. It can be anything, any tag and any attribute. So here we have a double quoted case, and here you have a single quoted case, because according to HTML5 specifications, singles, double, and in fact no quotes, or everything is allowed. But my methodology assumes that devs are using quoted values. They can either use a single quote and they can either use a double quotes. So again, it is a three-step process. The first two steps are basically browser independent, and the third step is specific to an Internet Explorer browser, old version of IE browser. So as a part of first step, again, just keep this line in mind. Your injection will land here. It has to start with double quotes just to close this class attribute, and then I am using on mouse over. You can use any event handler. This is just to show you a proof of concept. And then is equal to double quotes alert one. This double quotes will properly close this alert block. So the first step is basically a double quoted case. If you think that devs are using single quote, then you can apply the single quote case, single quotes on mouse over. You can use any event handler, but it has to be a three-step process. So always keep in mind, if you are testing for an attribute block, so you should apply these three steps. Then you will be sure that there is an XSS or there is no XSS. So the last step basically deals with backtick. So I come to this step in a minute. So Yahoo email was vulnerable to an XSS in attribute context. Basically, I reported this to Yahoo some months ago. This is Yahoo email basically. So just show another demo where we can use our methodology for an attribute block. So I am not sure that devs are using double quotes or single quotes. So I start with simply inputting junk. So here you see my input reflects back. I go to the source code and see what they are using. I search for my input query. So here my input reflects back as a part of value, and value is basically an input tags attribute, and devs are using double quotes. So it means that I can apply my first step. So let's apply the first step, double quotes on mouse over alert one. So here you go. So no need to use image source X on error alert one. So always focus, always look at the source code and see what context you are. Then you have a methodology. You can attack context in that way. So this should be closed. Yeah. Next, the third step. If you will remember the attack methodology diagram, it is a three-step process. The first one starts with double quotes, the second one starts with single quote, and the last one starts with backtick. Basically, the third step, backtick, it's related to old version of IE browsers. This trick was discovered by this guy Yoshiko Hasegawa, so you should follow him. So he's a great guy. And IE8 basically treats backtick as a valid separator for attribute and attribute's value, where it is basically very useful in breaking attribute context if site is properly filtering single and double quotes. Most of the time site don't filter backtick. So it has been noted in security cheat sheet by Mario, so you should follow him. So, and you should read his research paper about this mutation XSS. So he used backtick basically over there. So now I will show you some examples. So all the demos have been testing on Microsoft Windows XP and IE8, and the tool I used created by Mario HTML5.6 inner HTML. So see, this is the same case we have a div tag, we have a class attribute, and we have a double quoted case. So see, I'm not starting with double quotes. I am simply inputting backtick on mouse over alert one. And if you will test this demo in IE8 in Microsoft XP, basically I tested it, so you will see an XSS vector get executed, and this is how IE treats it, like simply double quotes gone in IE8. So another example, we have an href, we have an ID attribute, and as a part of an attribute you inputted backtick on mouse over, it simply works. So another example with input tag value attribute, here I am using onFocus. It can be any event handler basically. So some months ago I reported this to GitHub. GitHub was vulnerable to this inner HTML based XSS. So they allow you to input an image, and at the same time they allow you to specify a value for an alt attribute. So if as a part of an alt attribute you specified backtick, because alt is an attribute, again keep in mind alt is an attribute, and you can apply the attribute context attack methodology. So you can simply apply backtick on error and it get executed. I reported this to GitHub, and as a part of response they said that yeah, we have validated the finding, but the problem is that GitHub is not supporting Internet Explorer 7 or 8. So they think that this is basically a issue that has less importance, but they validated the finding. So TinyMC was also vulnerable. It's very popular WYSIWYG editor. It is basically also vulnerable to an inner HTML based XSS. I reported the bug and they have fixed it. So who is using TinyMC? Site like Facebook, Jive, WordPress, Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, Joomla, so they all are using TinyMC. So the question arises, how to exploit inner HTML based XSS? So in order to exploit inner HTML based XSS, you can see when slide will be available, you can see this is a demo I have created, small demo. So here we have if you look at the snippet, there is a div tag, and here the first div tag closes, and there is the second div tag. As a part of first div tag, we have some input tag, some ID like custom security question name. Here as a part of value we have backtick on mouse over alert one, and if you look at this line, we have a second div tag where there is nothing, just a space as a part of its value. And if devs are doing inner HTML assignment in their JavaScript, then you can exploit this backtick based XSS. So somewhere in the code, if they are taking the value, inner HTML value from this div and assigning to this div, then you can exploit it. In that way, attacker can exploit the inner HTML based XSS. So you can test the demo on this URL. So next question you might be thinking, who cares about IE8? According to this presentation by Microsoft Program Managers, so the link is given, IE8 still had a 22% market share. So it means IE8 still has some worth. Again, question arises. Similar to script context methodology, in attribute context methodology, again there is no encoding. So let's look at this demo. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically 6 div tags, all have class attribute. We have a double quoted scenario because here I am using double quotes. So in the first div, I explicitly starts with my attack methodology, that is double quotes on mouse over double quotes alert one. Here you see I encoded the double quotes in decimal form, here in hex form, here in URL, here in HTML5, here in Unicode, but nothing works. How? If this encoding works, it means that I should get an XSS by hovering the mouse here. But if I will run this, I will only get one XSS, just the first one. You see, on mouse over, where I am explicitly using double quotes. So encoding will not help you. So these are the reasons you guys were unable to break my filter, because your obfuscation simply fails. Obfuscation may help you somewhere, but it does not help you in breaking the context. So in my challenge, I am not allowing you to break the context. That's why you're all fuzzing, your all obfuscation simply get failed. So next, there are some examples where encoding helps. If you will read this story, this is an XSS that I found. In fact, there are multiple XSS that I found in Yahoo Web Analytics. You see, if you will read this short post, image source X on error confirm was not working. But as soon as I encoded the complete vector in hex form, it starts working. And this my input lands as a part of an attribute context, because in this particular case, Yahoo Web Analytics developers are doing explicit decoding. So what is happening actually? I encoded this block, this is double quotes, it will go to the server. Server will explicitly decode it into a hard-coded double quote, and then server will reflect back to the browser. And for the browser, once browser will render a hard-coded double quotes, it will jump out from the context. It will break the context, and then this is how XSS get executed. So for this XSS, I got rewarded $750 from Yahoo by HackerOne. So next is basically a style context attack methodology. So forgot a script block, forgot attribute. Now move to the style context. To the best of my knowledge, modern browsers do not allow you to execute JavaScript via style attribute or via styles. So this basically is specific to this attack methodology is specific to old version of IE browsers. So the previous two methodologies have three steps for script context, 3 steps for attribute, but this methodology has 4 steps. And now I will explain why 4 steps and why they are complete. So the first step is basically because I think in IE7 or IE5 CSS expressions was introduced, and you can use to execute JavaScript. Basically, this is dynamic CSS. So here we have a div tag, we have a style attribute, we have a double quoted case, and we have a single quoted case. So now no need to start with double quotes because you're not breaking the context. We will try to execute a script via legit styles. The first step is basically width :expression alert 1. So in that way, XSS got executed. But look at the next step. In the next step, I'm using multi-line comments inside the word expression. Basically, this is an old trick that has been discussed, I think, in 2007 or 8 at Slackers. So IE7 simply ignores these multi-line comments. But why I am using multi-line comments as a part of second step? Why I need this step? Because I will show you later, there are XSS protections that are simply filtering the word expression. So in order to defeat these protections, you can use multi-line comments inside the word expression. And for IE old versions, it's okay. It gets executed. The third step is interesting. I will also show you an example where in style block, XSS protections tries to filter these small parentheses, these small brackets. So that's why as a part of third step, I simply encoded these small brackets and colon in hex encoded form, in hex encoding form. So this is basically hex encoding form of colon, and this is for the parentheses. At the same time, in third step, you can also use decimal encoding. Hex encoding is also allowed, decimal encoding is also allowed, but You cannot use HTML5 entity encoding because old browsers do not support it. So for simplicity, here I am only using hex encoding. But when I tested all the protections, I found it's a reasonable assumption, and I verified it by testing that if hex encoding works, it means decimal encoding will also works, because both starts with an ampersand sign. And the last and the final step of this style context attack methodology, I'm using backslash. Basically this is CSS escaping. So once you will apply all these 4 steps, you can be sure that there is an XSS in that particular injection point, or there is no XSS. Because if you think, we have tested every variation. We have tested for simple expression, we have tested where expression got filtered, we have tested where small brackets got filtered, and if they are filtering and, then you can use a backslash also. So this is a 4-step process, and it works. So if you will remember this $1,000 XSS challenge that we announced, this challenge is now closed. So it was online for 2 weeks. It is still basically on online, but now no one will get the reward because we have closed the challenge. So it was there for 2 weeks and no one was able to break it. And now I show you an implementation, because as a part of challenge, in one context I am outputting data in style block, and in order to implement my style context implementation, I am following this methodology. I show you. So this is some stats about XSS attack time. This is how simple the implementation is. See, if you will closely look at the implementation, just forgot double quotes, forget single quotes. Just focus on this. I am only filtering small brackets less than. I am filtering backslash, and I am filtering and. Right now, forgot double quotes, forgot single quotes, forgot less than sign. Just focus on 3. Small brackets, backslash, and. Why? Let's again come to this methodology. Here you see, and if you will closely observe these diagrams, you see in order to execute JavaScript, attacker has to use small brackets, or attacker can use and sign by encoding it, or attacker can use backslash. So I took 3 characters only by closely looking at this methodology. I don't want to filter colon, because at the same time I want that my filter will allow simple styles. If I will filter or I will control colon, then no style will be allowed. My goal is to allow users to input some styles. So that's why I only control small parentheses, in fact left parentheses. I control and. Why and? Because if dev or if attacker want to use encoding, it has to start with the and if you will filter and, it means that encoding will fail. And the last, backslash. So out of 6 chars, so 3 you can see here, less than, backslash, and. Now question you might think right now, why double quotes and why single quotes are there? Just think, here we have a div tag and we have a style attribute. It means that we are sitting inside an attribute block also. We are sitting inside because a style is using as an attribute. And if you will go back to an attribute context methodology, it is a 3-step process where I was using double quotes on mouse over, single quotes on mouse over, and backtick. So that's why, by keeping in mind style attribute, I have to filter double quotes, I has to filter single quotes if devs are using single quote. This is a very generic implementation. I show you. You can simply cut short some characters, how I show you in a minute. And why less than? Imagine. So this slide will give you an answer to your questions. Why double quote is part of implementation? Imagine a case. Span is a tag, style is an attribute, and we have this injection point. So this injection point means that attacker can control it. Attacker can input the value here. So first attacker has inputted a legit style color colon led semicolon, and then because he can simply break the context also, he closes the style block and on mouse over. That's why I have to filter double quotes in order to stop that case. Second, why single quote is there? Because I am not sure. I want that devs will use my protection. So my library should be general. So that's why we have a single quote case is there. If this is the case, then attacker can simply closes the single quote, will break the context and then execute the JavaScript. Next, if you will remember the attribute context attack methodology, it is a three-step process: double quotes, single quotes, and backtick. But here you see in the implementation there is no backtick. But it is a part of attribute context methodology. It has to be there. Why it is not there? If attacker will input backtick on mouse over alert 1, in old browsers this will happen. Simply style attribute gone. So no need to filter backtick. So that's why how I develop or how I come up with this implementation, just by looking at this diagram and by knowing my methodology diagram of attribute context. So I found no one was able to execute an XSS in a style block if you will only use this simple implementation. This is very simple. We have a bad char, we have a safe char where you can, I am simply encoding it. You can use it, you can use any word. You can use remove, you can use try hard or whatever. You can use it anything here. And then I simply do a string replacement. So the implementation is so simple. It can be easily converted into any other language. And if you will filter these 6 characters, no one can ever execute an XSS in a style block. And I realized this implementation just by looking at the attack methodology. The last one, why less than is there? Less than is there because the previous all 3 cases, they are using style attribute. Now we have a case of style tag, because I'm not sure, maybe devs are using style. So I want to make my implementation generic. So if we have that type of case where injection lands as a part of style tag, not attribute, then attacker can prematurely close the style tag and then execute his JavaScript. So that's why I filter less than also. So this is how easy and unbreakable style context implementation. So for at the same time, this implementation will allow you to give all simple CSS styles. For example, background dash color colon green, because I am not controlling colon, I am not controlling semicolon. So all legit simple styles are allowed. But at the same time, this simple implementation will help you, or so that attacker cannot execute JavaScript inside a script block. So I would suggest you to read this write-up. This has a worth of $1,000. I basically broke the Magentos. What you see is what you get edited. This is stylish XSS because I leverage some style. So the link is given. I would suggest you to please read this post. So for the URL context attack methodology, so you have to wait something. You have to wait. I will unveil this during my training that I will train in Switzerland in some months' time, or at Black Hat Talk. So in a similar manner, I have shown you 3 diagrams: script block, attribute block, and style. But in a similar manner, I have developed a methodology for URL context also. But right now I am not unveiling it, so it's basically a surprise. So I will unveil. You have to come to Switzerland in order to get this training, where I am training XSS and PHP, a happily married couple, or you may visit Black Hat, or once this will be done, it will be public then. So, but as far as URL context methodology is concerned, I found stored XSS in Twitter. Twitter is only a handful of sites that are using CSP. You can read the post here. I found XSS in URL context in Magento Commerce. So Magento is a new bug bounty program. So let's talk about the evaluation. Now we have diagrams. Now we know we have a methodology diagram for a script block. We have a methodology diagram, attacking methodology for attribute block. We have an attack methodology for style context also. Now let's evaluate it. So for the evaluation, I choose 4 stuff. First one, some PHP built-in functions that PHP is providing and that devs are using. Second, developers thinks that no, we will come up with their own XSS protection, so customized solutions. I show you in some minutes. And the last one is common frameworks. And finally, we have an Alexa top sites. I also applied the methodology on Alexa top 100 sites. I will show you the results later. So some PHP functions that devs are using, or in fact not these functions as such, but their combinations. So for example, trim will simply remove white spaces. Strip tag will simply remove less than, greater than sign. HTML entity will try to encode less than sign. Strip slashes will basically remove backslash. So these are the function and how devs are using. This is the first example. So see, strip slashes, brackets, HTML entities, bracket, strip tags, trim input. This is how dev is trying to protect against XSS. If there's an input, he simply trim it, then he strip tag it, then he try to encode it, and then as a part of last step, he strip slashes it. If you will search on GitHub, just a quick search reveals that there are more than 1,610 results on GitHub for this combination. The testbed is available online here on this URL. So another combination that devs are using is a very popular one: trim HTML special chars value entity codes. This will properly escape codes UTF-8. A quick search reveals there are more than 63 combinations, but of course there are some false positive, but it gives you an idea how popular that protection is. And the testbed is available here. You can simply apply the methodologies that I have proposed some slides ago. So you can simply take the methodology, take these steps and start applying it. Then you will see how easy it is to break these contexts. Another combination that I found that is very popular: HTML entities, trim, strip tags, strip slashes, entity no quotes. So there are so many variations. Devs are trying different variations in order to protect their PHP applications. Again, the testbed is available here. So everything will be online immediately after this talk. So you can simply take the methodology and start applying on these testbeds, and you will see how easy it is to break this context in different, how easy it is to break these protection in different contexts. So this just by keeping in mind the time, I will simply show you a summary here. So these are the 11 variations that I have tested. And if you will look at this first column, HTML context, so I was not able to bypass this protection in HTML block. So these all PHP functions, they are performing well enough, but only in HTML context. The reason that we can think right now is because as far as XSS is concerned, we learned XSS only in HTML context. So, and these functions have been developed only by keeping in mind HTML context. But if you look at this column, attribute context, every function is bypassable. Style context, every function is bypassable. In URL context, every function is bypassable. So these protections or these PHP functions, I would suggest developers use these functions, but only in HTML context. Don't use these functions for an attribute, for a style, or for a URL context. This is a summary basically of all the protections. When I will train, I will simply, you can then apply everything. 40 plus test beds or online, you can do everything. So now let's move to the customized XSS solutions. They are very common. The first one I am going to discuss is interesting. It's basically called a remove XSS. I found on GitHub, devs are calling it filter XSS or no XSS. And a quick search on GitHub reveals that there are more than 1,000 PHP files that are using this function called remove XSS. The testbed is available on this URL. So the feature. Once I look at the code of this remove XSS, I found there are 2 arrays. They call it raw1 and raw2. The first array consists of blacklisted words like JavaScript, like expression. So these are the hard-coded words, JavaScript, expression. And the second array consists of some event handlers. So So devs are trying to explicitly mentions all the names of an event handler that should be filtered. So this is what they know. So this is how I bypassed it. So the bypasses for an HTML context, because on input is not part of this array. On input is not part of this array. So by simply using this event handler on input, so I was able to bypass this protection. As a part of second bypass, this is a form action. Here you see, in JavaScript, I'm using some HTML5 entity encoding for tab and new line. And if you look at the protection, they're explicitly try to filter only the word JavaScript. So if I will use and tab as a part of JavaScript, the protection simply got bypassed. So as far as attribute context bypasses are concerned, you can use any event handler that is not part of list on pop state or on storage. I tweeted about that on this URL, and lot of people or a lot of researchers easily bypass this protection. So you can see different bypasses on this tweet. Style context bypass, because if you will closely look at the feature, one of the in the first array they are explicitly filtering expression. Now if you think my attack methodology for a style context, you will remember the second step. The second step is basically a multi-line comment inside the word expression. So this is the second step that was able to bypass this protection, because expression was filtered, so I have to apply the second step. So in a similar manner, this is a bypass for URL context, and this is a script context bypass. So I will leave this as an exercise, because this is a special case, remove XSS, where I am using encoding. If you will remember my post on Yahoo Web Analytics, where explicit decoding was able to help me in order to bypass Yahoo Web Analytics protection. So this is the same case. So in the remove XSS protection, devs are explicitly decoding it, and that's why I am not using a hard-coded single code. I am using an encoded form. So you can simply look at the testbed and you will realize it. Another customized protection that is very popular, and in fact, sorry to say it's a bad protection, but it's popular one. I found on GitHub there are 7,943 code results. The testbed is available on this URL. Why this protection is popular? Why 7,000 PHP files are using it? Because it got published on a popular site, CSS Tricks. CSS Tricks is a very popular site. One day they posted this thing that you can. It's a function that you can use to strip out malicious bits. So this is how the function works. The function consists of an array of 4 elements. The first element will only look for script tag. The second array element will look for any tag, only looks for less than greater than sign. The third looks for style tag, and the last one looks for multi-line comments. And they simply, if any of these found in the input, they simply remove it here. So this is the protection, but how easy is to bypass it? So this is the case. Image source X ID confirm 1 or an error eval ID. So see, there is no greater than sign. This is a half open tag. Why half open? If I will place a greater than sign, this will capture it, the second element, because they are looking for less than greater than sign. So in my attack vector there is no greater than sign, so I can simply defeat this regular expression. So in a similar manner, there is a bypass for iframe source, and again you see this is a half open tag. So for the other context, now I believe it should be a child's play. If you will hang these charts on your wall, you can simply apply the steps one by one and you can see the bypass. Another popular protection, and this one is very interesting because this is very only related to CSS. Devs have explicitly mentioned that please use this protection for style block. So this function has 2 regular expressions. The first regular expressions looks for a URL, and the second regular expressions tries to capture the small parenthesis less than sign. The testbed is available on this URL. So how I was able to bypass this sanitized CSS? So let's first visualize these regular expressions. This is a tool called Reg Expert. If you will input the regular expression in this tool, you can visualize the regular expression. By closely looking at the first regular expression and its visualization, you see that regular expressions tries to capture the word URL in an input, and the second regular expression tries to capture the less than sign or small parenthesis left. Because why URL? Down below you can see some snippet. Because attacker can use background colon URL small parenthesis JavaScript, so that's why devs think that if we will capture URL or if we will capture small parenthesis, then we are safe. But in fact they are not safe. If you will remember the third step of my style context attack methodology, in the third step I have basically encoded small parentheses in hex form. So in that way you can simply bypass this protection, because they are looking for URL and they are looking for small brackets. So but here you see there is no URL, there is no small bracket. So the third and the fourth step of the presented methodology will simply bypass it. So another popular protection, detect XSS. Why popular? A very popular Symfony CMS content management system is using this protection, and according to Symfony sites, 410 sites have been developed using Symfony, and according to one information, BBC News is also using this Symfony framework. So it means a bypass will simply you can simply leverage the bypass and it will work on 410 websites that have been developed using this Symfony CMS, and in fact those sites that are using this protection. So let's come to the feature, how detect XSS works. Again, it has an array. The first array will look for an event handler that starts with on or an attribute with XMLNS. The second regular expression or the second part of array element looks for some URL like JavaScript, VB script, live script. So the third regular expression will look for style tag, style attribute, and the last one has blacklisted some unwanted tags, unneeded tags like embed, object. So how I was able to bypass this detect XSS? So this is how. Because they are only try to capture the hard-coded JavaScript. So again, I am using HTML5 entity encoding inside the JavaScript. So with this vector, I can simply bypass it. Here, math tag is not a part of their blacklist, and xlink href is also not part of blacklist. So with the help of these two vectors, I was able to bypass detect XSS. And for other context, you remember, you know the charts, just hang the charts on your wall and you can simply bypass this protection by applying the steps that are given in the methodology. So this is the summary of bypasses. So I test, so by keeping in mind the time constraint, so I have only shown 4, but in fact I have tested in total around 10 customized solutions. So what does NA stands for? NA means not applicable. This is the example that I had given, sanitize CSS. Devs have explicitly mentioned that use this function only for the style block. So I only tested in style block and I was able to bypass it. So no need to test it in an HTML context, in an attribute context, or in a URL context, because the protection is intended only for style block. So if you will see, all customized solutions are bypassable. They simply don't rely on these customized solutions. They are easily bypassable. So the final part of the presentation is basically about PHP based web application frameworks. Frameworks are very common because they basically help in they make the development process easier, and they try to minimize the overhead associated with the common task. So CodeIgniter. So here I will only explain CodeIgniter. If you will look at these red lines, underlined lines, one of the most popular, the second most watched PHP based project, the last one is the highest number of folks on any PHP project at GitHub. So this is how popular CodeIgniter is. So I would suggest you, after this talk, just go to this URL. This is the bug that I filed on for CodeIgniter some months ago. It is still there and it is still open. You can try also some bypasses, but now CodeIgniter is much better as compared to some months ago. So let's talk about the feature, and then I will show the bypasses. First, one of the feature of CodeIgniter is they simply disallowed JavaScript in links and images. If CodeIgniter sees some JavaScript as a part of link or as a part of image, they simply try to delete it. So this is the regular expression they are using. This is basically a current regular expression. Right now you are getting as a part of code as a part of GitHub code, but previously it looks like that. Before I started bypassing, I found this regular expression. We have a link tag, then the regular expression expects white space and then href or whatever attribute you want to use. So I think 90 out of 100 people that are listening, for example, 90 out of 100 people that are listening this talk, they know that we can simply use a / as a part of white space instead of white space. Basically, one can use a white space or one can use a simple slash. So with the help of simple slash, I was able to bypass the regular expression, and I was able to execute JavaScript as a part of link tag, but their intended functionality, they try to remove it, but only slash works. You can test this on these test beds. They are also available online. Another feature, they have a list of naughty elements that they want that they should not be a part of input. So if you will look at these naughty elements, you found some form tag, frame tag, iframe, input. So these are some alert. So it's just basically a stupid thing. So they are explicitly filtering alert. So you can use confirm or you can use anything, but in real life, attacker normally does not use alert or confirm. So, but this is the old list that they have. But their naughty element tag does not have a math tag. So I simply use math tag and I used xlink href attribute, and with the help of this tag and this attribute, I was able to bypass the CodeIgniter because they are not part of the math tag is not part of this list, but the new list has now a math tag. So they have added the math tag now. So during my bypasses, I was making use of HTML5 entities like n tab, like n colon, and new line. So now the good thing is that CodeIgniter now supports these entities. Now you cannot use these entities anymore in your vectors. Now the support is there. Now CodeIgniter is much better as compared to some months ago. Last feature of CodeIgniter, they have a function called remove invisible characters. If you will use some invisible characters like null, then CodeIgniter has a function that tries to remove these invisible chars. The remove invisible feature was working fine, but one does not simply commit. I realized that during the commit, developer broke something, and I sent him a bypass, and he said, yeah, you were right, to remove invisible characters work, but a previous commit broke the replacement. So he committed something and he broke, and during this period I found a lot of bypasses. Like, for example, this is a sheet, different characters that one can use instead of white space in different browsers. This is a list developed by, I think, Masato Kinugawa, and the list is available on this URL. In IE browser, we can use instead of space 090b, what they are basically here. You can see the following characters can be used instead of white spaces. For example, 09 stands for horizontal tab, 0a stands for new line, 0b stands for vertical tab. So these are the different characters that you can use as a part of white space. So I simply make use of these characters. So here you see, after a and in between href attribute, there is an invisible char that is basically \c. What \c is basically is a new page. Here \c is a new page. So with the help of this invisible characters, so I was able to bypass CodeIgniter. Some old bypasses that works in older browsers like MyQ, so they are filtering on. So I used null as in between O and N. So an IE8 old version simply ignores this null, and the JavaScript get executed. So these are the different bypasses. And then I come up with this XSS vector where you can see all fuzz form of white spaces, like %0 is there, 0b is there, 0c is there, 0d, everything is there. So in this vector you will find all first form of spaces. So one thing to remember or to take away as far as CodeIgniter is concerned, because it's very popular, maybe some developers are listening and they're using it, you should not use it for an attribute, style, script, and URL context. It is only useful for an HTML context. If you want to use CodeIgniter, use it, go ahead, but use the latest development version and use it only for an HTML context. Initially, developers are not sure. The interesting thing is that I asked the developer and he said, yeah, I'm not the author of a filter, but as far as I know, it aims to filter everything. But this is not the case. It is a good protection, but only for an HTML block. So as far as summary of bypasses for different frameworks, again, I will unveil during my Black Hat talk or during my training in Switzerland. So, and the last, I think 1 or 2 slides. Basically, then I leveraged the methodology and I thought that I should apply it on Alexa top 100 sites. How I choose the top 100 sites? So on Alexa, if you will go to by category, you will see different categories like adult, arts, games, health, home, news, recreation. So what I did, I took top 10 sites from these 10 categories. So in total, we have 100 sites, and I applied the methodology that I presented to you on these 100 sites. And what I found that in case of adult, 6 out of 10 sites are easily bypassable. They have an XSS. In case of arts, 7 out of 10 sites have an XSS. In case of games, 2 sites out of 10 have an XSS. So in total, I found 50 out of 100. So I am not talking about a site that no one knows. I am talking about top sites. So the methodology is so powerful that if you will apply on these top sites, they are simply vulnerable, because I don't know, they don't know about context. They have a very bad protections out there. So this is basically an injection distribution. For example, this diagram shows if we talk about a shopping category, and in shopping category we have an XSS in HTML context and in style context, and I will specifically focus on this block. So in shopping category, 2 sites out of 4 are vulnerable in style context. What does it mean? Amazon and eBay, these are the 2 sites that are right now vulnerable in style context. So this is the first survey that looks at different contexts in top Alexa sites, and this is the distribution that I come up with. And I think the link, yeah, this is the link. You can read this summary or short write-up that is available on this URL. So let's conclude this. So basically, a large-scale survey shows the sad state of web security as far as XSS is concerned. The methodology is so simple, you can apply it on all other languages. But the interesting idea, what happens if we will automate this methodology and will unleash the tool on a large-scale survey of deep web? I'm sure then there will be a million of XSSs. If someone will do that, will automate the whole methodology procedure in that step-by-step process and simply start crawling all top sites or top million websites, then there will be a million of XSSs, I'm sure. So I would like to say special thanks to these 3 guys. So they are very kind enough to read the report, to read the paper, and their feedback was amazing for me. You should follow these 3 guys. And so from my side, I am done. If you have any question, you can simply post me on the Twitter. The slides will be available, I think, in 10 minutes time online. You can, I will tweet about the link. And so that's it. So Sandeep.
Yeah, sure. It was actually really great. I mean, the methodology, which amazed me, as well as the all the visitors are amazed with these payloads. Actually, it was a really amazing talk, and thank you very much, Ashar. It was a really great talk.
Thanks.
And for the okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks for it. And if anyone has any question, so he can simply post me on the Twitter, and I will try to reply it.
Okay, and I will request to visitor please fill the form of feedback so we can improve in next our webcast. And thank you very much for joining us. Signing out, Sandeep Kamble from Garage4Hackers. Thank you.